Good afternoon and welcome to our second concurrent session of the day, creating optimal learning environments for all students, promoting diversity and inclusivity in online and face-to-face sociology and criminal justice courses. Our presenter today is Dr. Monica Radu, faculty member at Southeast Missouri State University. If you have any questions for our presenter during the session, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A section at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we'll address those at the end of the talk. On that note, I will hand it over to our presenter.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction, and hopefully you can see my PowerPoint okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Dr. Monica Radu, and I'm an associate professor in the Department of Criminal Justice, Social Work, and Sociology at Southeast Missouri State University. I am a sociologist, but I do also teach criminal justice courses at both the undergraduate and graduate level. And my colleague who couldn't be here to present today, Dr. Sobba, is also an associate professor in the same department at Southeast. She's also our graduate coordinator for our department's graduate program in criminal justice. And she teaches criminal justice courses at both the undergraduate and graduate level, and also teaches some of our most important sociology courses. So today I will be talking about creating optimal learning environments for all students by focusing on promoting diversity and inclusivity in online and face-to-face sociology and criminal justice courses. So in this presentation, I'll be first talking about what is an optimal learning environment? What is culturally responsive teaching? I'll also talk a little bit more about diversity in higher education and challenges for historically underrepresented groups of students in higher ed. I'll also be discussing the value of using an intersectional approach to cultural responsiveness. And then I'll briefly talk about just some personal examples of how I strive to promote just about diversity of ideas and inclusivity in my online and face-to-face courses. All right. So colleges and universities continue to face challenges in providing optimal learning environments for underrepresented students. So when you look around your classrooms, who do you see? You may be able to see diversity in your classroom, but there's also a lot of diversity that you do not see. You may not know the social class, sexual orientation, religious background, or nationality of your students when you look around the room, but all of these social identities are important to your students. Especially in an online setting, you may not know how the unique identities of students are shaping their learning experiences. So when we're talking about these underrepresented groups of students, we're talking about students who have been traditionally underrepresented in education, such as racial and ethnic minorities, first-generation college students, students identifying as gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender, students with disabilities, and students from lower socioeconomic households. So in this presentation, we'll explore how culturally responsive teaching can help bridge the gap between students' culture and their classroom environments. So what do we mean by culture? So culture is defined as shared beliefs, values, and practices that individuals learn throughout their lives through the socialization process. And students' culture is important to the classroom environment because it's what makes students unique, and it should be both valued and celebrated within the classroom. So culturally responsive teaching incorporates students' identities and lived experiences into the classroom as tools for effective instruction. Geneva Gay in 2000 wrote that when academic knowledge and skills are situated within the lived experiences and frames of reference for students, they are more personally meaningful, have higher interest appeal, and are learned more easily and thoroughly. So in addition, in order to promote positive student outcomes, it's important that educators consider the way in which students' social identities intersect and overlap with one another to shape their perceptions and experiences in the classroom. Therefore, we suggest a culturally responsive approach that draws from an intersection perspective, We suggest that this may be most beneficial for promoting optimal learning environments in both online and face-to-face settings. So what is an optimal learning environment? So how can students best learn in your courses? Research suggests that learning environments are optimized when educators create healthy relationships between educators and students, positive relationships among students. So I always talk to my students about social capital and that they're building those relationships with their classmates so they can draw on their classmates' resources and knowledge throughout the semester. Also, an optimal learning environment includes an appreciation of diversity, a culture of support and respect, and safe spaces for critical thinking and disagreement. I always tell students it's okay to disagree. Disagreeing can help us understand different perspectives and ideas, and it helps all of us grow as critical thinkers. But in order for critical or constructive disagreements to happen in the classroom, the first step is creating those safe spaces where all perspectives are welcome. So over 2 decades ago, Gloria Ladson Billings introduced the term culturally relevant pedagogy. This term is used to describe a form of teaching that calls for engaging learners whose experiences and cultures are traditionally excluded from mainstream settings. So she proposed 3 goals for effective teachers of African American students. First, teaching must yield academic success. So as an educator, we want our students to be successful both in and out of the classroom. Second, teaching should help students develop these positive identities, which includes their ethnic and cultural identities, while also helping them achieve academically. And third, teaching should support students' ability to recognize, understand, and critique current and social inequalities. So educators can therefore empower students across various aspects of their lives. So drawing from this work, Geneva Gay then further developed the framework with more focus on educators' strategies and practices. So Gay coined the term culturally responsive teaching to define an approach that emphasizes using the cultural knowledge, prior experiences, frames of reference, and performance styles of ethnically diverse students to make learning encounters more relevant and effective to them. So Gay calls on culturally responsive educators to make these positive changes at multiple levels, including their instructional techniques, the materials that they use, the way they build relationships with their students, classroom climate, and self-awareness to improve learning for students. More recently, there's been a call that takes into account the ways students' identities and culture evolve. So educators should consider both static and evolving aspects of culture. So research suggests that drawing on students' background and culture can help promote this deep and meaningful learning. So some studies have even suggested that culturally responsive teaching strategies are associated with a wide range of positive outcomes, such as academic achievement and persistence, improved attendance, and just an overall greater interest in school. So we know that college campuses continue to grow in diversity. In the late 1980s and 1990s, US classrooms became increasingly diverse. But then there were concerns that grew regarding racial and ethnic disparities in academic success. So following this concern, a growing body of literature emerged that focused on the social, cultural, and linguistic challenges of students of color in American schools. So students of color, particularly African American, Latino, and Native American youth, tend to fall behind their white and Asian peers in terms of high school graduation, college enrollment, and earning a bachelor's degree. Research suggests that the percentage of Latino, Native American, and Black students enrolled in higher ed, it's on the rise, so that's great news. And according to the National Center for Education Statistics, between 1990 and 2013, undergraduate enrollment along Latino and African American students grew faster than other students. and graduation rates among both groups of students increased. So the increase in student diversity of post-secondary institution and growth of enrollment and graduation rates is suggesting, student progress in terms of reducing these racial and ethnic educational disparities. Yet, research still maintains that many colleges and universities are struggling to provide optimal learning environments that support the varying and unique needs of underrepresented groups of students. This suggests that more work needs to be done to address the diverse needs of marginalized students, including how to facilitate the most culturally responsive learning environments for students engaged in both face-to-face and online learning. Diversity in the classroom also consists of other unique identities. For example, military students, students identifying as part of the LGBTQ community, religious minority students, international students, also all bring with them unique cultures, traditions, and norms. And research consistently shows that a one-size-fits-all approach may not be most effective. Studies show that a lack of understanding of diverse student groups can negatively affect student success. Therefore, it is important that we consider how to create these optimal learning environments for all students. Prior research found that educational environments tend to adhere to white middle-class norms and values. And this suggests a mismatch between students' cultural norms and schools. Drawing from Anderson's work in 2000, researchers argued that students who can successfully code switch tend to be more successful in school. And code switch refers to the ability to behave according to certain sets of rules, depending on the situation or the environment. College educators often expect all students to be experienced in the specific and formal form of discourse utilized in most educational environments. However, students of color often attend racially segregated public high schools, where learning the preferred form of college-level discourse may be less common. This is because educators in predominantly minority schools tend to place more value on culturally distinct styles. Language and communication styles are largely linked to social class and cultural capital, which contributes to some students experiencing difficulties when trying to navigate and participate in the communication preferences of their college professors. And by cultural capital, I mean resources such as knowledge, education, intellect, style of speech, dress. All of these things promote social mobility within a stratified society. Additionally, researchers argue that pressure to adhere to the socio-cultural and social linguistic styles of higher education may contribute to minority students feeling alienated from their post-secondary education. In addition to experiences of alienation, other studies suggest that students of color often experience microaggressions on campus and in the classroom, and they feel that their voices remain unheard in the curriculum. Culturally responsive teaching serves as a mechanism to bridge a student's culture and the school environment, which in turn can improve student learning outcomes. Several scholars have noted that culturally specific teaching styles may contribute to the academic success of students of colors and students from various culturally distinct backgrounds. Adding diversity in classroom curriculum is one important mechanism for creating an inclusive learning environment. Were all of the instructional materials provided in the class authored by somebody who looks like and maybe sounds like the professor? It's important that students hear from diverse scholars in their fields of study. In addition, online, do all discussion forums need to be formally written, or can some of them incorporate diverse linguistic styles? Sometimes I encourage students to write their discussion board posts like they would verbally answer in class. In academia, of course, there is a time and place for formal writing, but when could possibly a writing assignment be in the language style that a student would use in everyday life? Although research suggests that there has been more acceptance and tolerance towards sexually minority students in the US, research suggests that across colleges and universities, Challenges that are specific to students identifying as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or other are not adequately understood or addressed by faculty members. Some studies suggest that faculty members may be partly at blame for the creation of unwelcoming environments for LGBTQ+ students. While the transition to college may be difficult for all students, students identifying as LGBTQ+ and those questioning their sexual identities may find the transition to college even more difficult than their heterosexual counterparts. LGBTQ+ students are more likely to experience mental health issues and tend to face stigma, discrimination, and bullying on some college campuses. So to help promote a more inclusive and tolerant campus climate, it's important that courses reflect inclusiveness in the curriculum, which can be accomplished by representing LGBTQ+ individuals in an accurate and positive manner. Researchers argue that faculty and staff should be educated about the importance of inclusive learning environments for LGBTQ+ students because lack of knowledge is a reported barrier for providing support for sexually minority students. Researchers argue that cultural responsiveness is necessary to demonstrate respect for LGBTQ+ students' culture. It's also important that educators build strong communities within the classroom that address the heterogeneity of LGBTQ+ students and their experiences. And one way that faculty can increase their knowledge on unique challenges of LGBTQ+ students is through the completion of the Safe Zone project. The Safe Zone project is a free online resource providing curriculum, activities, and other resources for educators facilitating the Safe Zone trainings. Many colleges and universities offer these trainings to faculty, staff, and even students. The Safe Zone project was founded in 2013, and it's a free resource for any individuals doing LGBTQ awareness and ally trainings. The trainings include activities such as a changing perspective activity that demonstrates how changing your perspective can make something look completely different, and an activity that I think is really helpful for faculty that focuses on essential vocabulary and LGBTQ terminology relating to gender and sexuality. In addition, adding your own pronouns in the syllabus or in your email signature signals to students that you are an ally and willing to support their pronouns. So recent studies suggest an increase in active military service members participating in online education, which could pose new opportunities and challenges for instructors in online courses. So researchers argue that there may be cultural and social barriers for students pursuing higher education while in the military or after their service. For example, active military personnel may face pressures associated with deployment and temporary duty assignments beyond the demands that most college students may be experiencing while pursuing higher education. Additionally, for deployed service personnel, access to the internet can be a concern, and accessing course material and adhering to specific due dates and other guidelines can be a significant source of stress for these students. One of the most significant challenges among military students are concerns regarding ongoing psychological and social problems, which could be associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. Some veterans and active duty military service members may also be experiencing co-occurrences of mental health and physical challenges. It also may be difficult for veterans to build relationships with their instructors and peers, as researchers note that re-entering civilian life and becoming a student is often an adjustment for military students, even for those who attended college prior to being deployed. Relearning study skills and reintegration into classroom instruction were challenges that military students described facing, in addition to lingering issues of anger, stress, lack of sleep from their experiences during combat. Culturally responsive approaches for online military learners help create more positive and effective learning environments, which could increase student satisfaction and retention. Military service members, particularly those who face deployments exemplify students who have faced disruptive and life-changing experiences. Unfortunately, few colleges and universities provide specific support for military students and training and development for faculty and staff regarding teaching active or former military members. Also, research suggests that it's unlikely that faculty members have firsthand experience with military culture, which suggests that an additional training may be needed for faculty members. Researchers have also discovered that some military students reported anti-military biases on their campuses, some of which came directly from faculty members. This form of bias may contribute to further disconnect and alienation for military students in higher education. Additionally, military students have noted their experiences being expected to be spokespeople for all veterans, and a practice that studies have shown has marginalizing consequences. Moving forward, research suggests that in order to enhance the educational success of military learners, academic programs should be flexible to meet the demanding schedules of military students and help create connections for military students and their families. And also, faculty and staff and all educators should be responsive to the unique life-altering experiences that many military students may have experienced. So a lot of research suggests that the flexibility of online courses can be very appealing for students. However, it's important to note with online learners, it is so important to find ways to keep them engaged and to build those connections. So like we just discussed, nationwide colleges and universities are growing in diversity in terms of culture, race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, native language, socioeconomic status, and family background. Prior research on these diverse social identities and educational outcomes tend to treat students' cultural backgrounds as separate and distinct demographic categories. Additionally, research on culturally responsive teaching tends to consider social identities as these independent categories. This approach can be problematic because it fails to consider the ways in which these multiple identities intersect and overlap with one another. That is, race, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, social class. All of these identities intersect to shape the experiences of students in multiple contexts, including post-secondary learning environments. Students do not engage in their face-to-face or online classroom as one category of their identity. Rather, the way in which students' identities are entangled shapes how students engage with course material and experience interactions in their online learning. Recently, feminist approaches have highlighted how feminism problematically failed to consider how women of color experiences were different than those of white women. So Figure 1, an intersection approach for implementing culturally responsive teaching, displays a visual representation of overlapping and intersectional identities that may influence students' experiences as learners. So intersectionality is an important theoretical tool in demonstrating that forms of inequality are experienced differently, not only among marginalized groups, but also among groups of individuals experiencing multiple forms of oppression. So intersectionality may be useful for considering the unique challenges of military learners, because think about how military students tend to have distinct demographic characteristics compared to their non-military counterparts. For example, military undergraduate students are much more likely to be married compared to their non-military undergraduate peers. And at the graduate level, researchers found significant differences regarding race, as a larger percentage of military students identified as Black or African American compared to non-military graduate students. Also, research suggests that military students tend to focus exclusively on male students and homogenize all military students' experiences. Therefore, for colleges and universities, it's important to take into consideration the barriers that may prevent unique groups of military students from successfully completing their post-secondary education. In addition to the experiences of military students, that's just one example, an intersectional approach can be valuable for addressing challenges of college students who identify as multiple cultural minorities. For example, students who identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, who maybe are also in need of accessibility services, may simultaneously experience marginalization due to their overlapping minority group statuses. Other studies suggest it's important to consider the high diversity among LGBTQ+ students, including variations by race, ethnicity, gender, social class, and age. McCready in 2010 argues that few studies actually focus on the educational experiences of LGBTQ students of color. So intersectionality is a valuable tool for developing a more nuanced understanding regarding how overlapping forms of oppression may create real and perceived barriers in higher education. So culturally responsive teaching is important across all disciplines and fields, but I can only speak to sociology and criminal justice. And these courses are often asking students to critically examine course material. They often employ class discussion and activities, both in face-to-face and online settings. And in sociology, there tends to be more awareness about social identities and inequality. Additionally, some sociology courses may be part of the general education requirement at a college or university, so there could be a really wide range of majors and minors in the course, and that means students might have a wide range of knowledge about social inequality when first entering the course. Also, sociology and criminal justice courses may address controversial topics, and as educators, it's important to promote a safe and inclusive learning environment where various sides of these topics can be addressed constructively. So here's just an example or some examples of sociology and criminal justice courses that myself and Dr. Sobba teach. So racial and ethnic relations, social inequality, I teach that both at the undergraduate and graduate level. Invisible families, which focuses on the experiences of LGBTQ+ families, social problems, deviant social behavior, and then Dr. Sobba's focuses are intersections of crime, which focuses on using intersectionality as a theoretical tool for understanding crime in the criminal justice system. And then she also teaches victimology both at the graduate and undergraduate levels. Also, my own classes, like on my Canvas page or on in my syllabus, I include this statement for each course. As a sociologist, I'm always aware of my social location. That is, how my various social identities overlap and intersect to shape my experience and role as an educator. My social location, being white, heterosexual, a college-educated woman, shapes the lens in which I see the world. This is one reason that I find it so important to include the voices of other sociologists and scholars in my courses. Therefore, in this course, you're not only going to hear from me, you'll be learning from other experts in the field through textbook readings, videos, documentaries, blogs, and additional readings. I don't want to overburden you with all of these various resources, but to be a socially conscious and culturally responsive teacher, I believe that more than just my voice needs to be heard in this course. This approach best facilitates an inclusive learning environment that benefits all students. I believe that we can all learn from one another this semester. Also, I include this statement and image somewhere on Canvas or in my syllabus. I am an ally. For more information, please visit the LGBTQ Resource Center, and then I include the link. And then I also have a statement that says, also, please take a few minutes to read this article. What are gender pronouns and why do they matter? This has been just really helpful for students. So in conclusion, there are many ways to achieve optimal learning environments for students. And using an intersectional approach to employ culturally responsive teaching techniques is just one way to promote better learning outcomes for students. Moving forward, it's important that research continues to address best practices for promoting inclusivity in both online and face-to-face settings. And as educators, we continue to learn from one another. What worked for you in your class? What didn't work? What did you learn from something that didn't work? I have some success stories, but I also have plenty of stories or instances where an activity or an assignment didn't go as planned. So what do? You reevaluate, you brainstorm, you ask others for help and ideas. Asking students what worked or what I could have done better can also help facilitate better learning environments. Do you like to sit in a circle when you come to class? Do you like to sit in small groups? Do you like it better when everybody faces the front? Small changes like this or like these can make a big difference in promoting just a positive learning environment and safe space for all students. So thank you for taking the time to listening to the presentation, and I'm looking forward to hearing your ideas and feedback.
Thank you so much, Dr. Radu. At this time, everyone, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom room screen. There'll be a little box on the Zoom, should be a black ribbon at the bottom of your screen. I'll go ahead and kick us off because I had a question for you. I really enjoyed learning from your presentation, and I found it intriguing when you mentioned offering different types of discussion boards for your students, some that were a little bit more casual in nature. And I just wanted to see how the students responded to that.
So I actually got this idea from something that didn't work. So, always learning from, whatever, something that didn't always go as planned. So I had this question, and it was in my racial and ethnic relations course. And it was talking about culture and identity in hip hop music. And so I posted the discussion board questions, and there was a large number of students who actually plagiarized a response. And I thought, what in the world? This was supposed to be an easy question. This wasn't supposed to be something that's, when students plagiarize, it's typically for a reason. Maybe they didn't understand the question, they felt pressure, So I met with all those students, individually, and I just talked about, I want to hear your voice. Tell me what you think. So I just having those conversations with those students kind of changed the discussion board. So then moving forward, I would just kind of include more formal assignments and more informal, I want to hear your voice, because working in the field is not academia. I worked in social work, I worked for nonprofits. You have to meet people where you are. You have to communicate in a way that is respectful to other people, that they, understand. So I think that's important. I think that that's a skill in being able to communicate something as simple as you can. So that's kind of a long answer to your question.
No, thank you. That's awesome. And I actually have another question from my colleague Lauren. Since we're co-panelists, we're not able to put ours in the question box. So
Oh, okay.
I'll go ahead and read that from her. She wanted to know if you could speak to resources available for educators on their campuses that may help promote inclusivity and culturally responsive experiences for their students.
Yes. So, across every college and university, of course, it's different. I think it's important to do that research on your own to kind of see what we have. But I also, in my Invisible Families class, I asked students to do that. What resources do we have on campus? And some, it's a pretty quick search, and so we don't have any. It's well, okay, try again. We do have these resources, and here's why they are important. Also, at our university, there are diversity committees, both at the department level and the college level. And I'm on that committee, and just working to put together resources for all of our faculty to utilize. And something that we're interested in doing is kind of asking people to do a self-audit, to look at their courses and see who am I citing what? Are all of my TED Talks by white men? Could I do something to increase the diversity of the TED Talks that I show? And, different things like that, that small changes can make a big difference.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Everyone, will just leave our Q&A area open a little longer. If you have any other questions, please feel free to enter those into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom room screen. I thought of another question, so I'll go ahead and ask that. Did your university sponsor your safe zone training, or is that something that y'all partner with like a third party nonprofit or something like that?
Oh, that's a great question. So it was our LGBTQ center that put on the training. I think they put it on several times, each semester, and it was actually taught by a graduate student who did an amazing job. But I think sociologists, we think we know everything, about diversity and, different things, but that training it was so helpful for me. And also it was my first year teaching after graduate school. So you kind of learn that culture of wherever you went to graduate school, wherever you taught at, and now you need to learn a new culture when you go to a new university. And so, I took it that my first semester, and anyone can look at the resources online for the safe zone training. Like if you want to become an expert and teach your class or teach others, but I think a lot of colleges and universities have certain organizations who are responsible for teaching that or using that training. But it's been really helpful, and I just like walking around campus and seeing people who have that safe zone sticker on their door once they complete the training. It just it's just an inclusive, happy environment for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Well, at this time, I do not see any other questions in the Q&A area. So I just want to say on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for your presentation and for everything that you share. Is there anything else you'd like to share before we dismiss?
No, thank you so much for the opportunity to present. This was great.
Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for being here. And at this time, we will go ahead and wrap up today's session. Our next concurrent session will begin at 2 p.m. Eastern, and you can view the chat for the session meeting room links or access the conference website for a complete list of our concurrent sessions and their descriptions. And while accessing the conference website, please don't forget to swing by the virtual exhibit hall to say hello to the Hawks team. And while you're there, you can view a quick 5-minute demonstration, request your Hawks t-shirt, and be entered to win a $50 hourly giveaway. Also, in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, you will find a few golden coins throughout the conference website. So make sure you keep an eye out for those, and you can click on the coins to be entered to win an additional raffle. We will see you at the next session. Thank you, everyone.